We position this very much as an operational tool, not a analytics tool. So
Mhm.
yes, it involves big data. So yes, we're talking hundreds of millions of records, but we're not trying to calculate something across all of that data. What we're trying to do is hone in quickly to the relevant
Mhm.
subset of that data and present it to the user.
Greetings, everyone, through here. Welcome to the show. Today, we have a very exciting episode, an exciting demo with a very dynamic guest. The second time we're having this guest on the channel, very prolific, James Weekly. James is the founder and CEO of Omnada. In today's session, we're going to understand what Omnada is. And more importantly, we're going to see a demo of this modern data tool. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me through. Thanks for having me back again. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so you officially hold the title as the first return guest we have on the show. So I think that's pretty exciting to have you again.
That is cool.
Awesome. James, you're the founder of Omnada. For the audience who haven't heard about Omnada, can you talk a little bit about what this tool is in the modern data space?
Yeah, so Omnada Connect is we think fairly unique. It's essentially enabling CRMs like Salesforce to live query a cloud data warehouse. So similar concept to reverse ETL in that the cloud data warehouse is now the center. But this product isn't about copying from one system to another. It's about enabling connected applications or live query.
Okay, essentially keeping the data in place, but being able to connect and get value out of it.
Yeah, we definitely think the future of data integration, particularly for the big players, is sort of native and direct as opposed to sort of this customer managed flow.
That's a very fascinating approach. Is there a reason why you're taking that approach with Omnada as opposed to physically moving the data like some other players in this space would do with reverse ETL, CDP that you might have heard about in the industry?
Yeah, so we don't typically compete for the same use cases with those tools. So for products that are replicating data or reverse ETL, they tend to be for use cases like publishing the data that's already in the CRM. Like if you've got leads and you want to add a lead score, things that belong in the CRM, you're going to want to copy the data in there. This product is more for those extra sort of data sets for stuff that relates to the customer but doesn't necessarily fit in the CRM or really belong in there. So it's more like the sort of customer 360 vision that Salesforce push. So for a lot of our use cases, it wouldn't have actually been possible to copy the data in anyway. So it's more of an architectural alternative than a
Mm.
competing pattern.
Yeah, having the data, querying that data live means you're almost getting instantaneous insights into that data as opposed to waiting for weekly batch feeds or weekly ingestion jobs to run.
Yeah, that's right. Jump in and show you if you like. I'm going to demo Snowflake and Salesforce. In this screen here, I've got a Snowflake data warehouse. Now, the scenario here, we have Salesforce acting as a CRM. So it's got all the accounts. This is actually sort of an e-commerce scenario. So imagine you're a company, you're selling things on some online store. You've got a CRM to manage those relationships, but then there's some other imaginary ERP system in the background that's doing all the order management. So the data that's generated by that system doesn't really fit in Salesforce to really belong there. But we would like our Salesforce users to have visibility of that data without sort of jumping back and forth between that ERP system. So in this example, we have a couple of tables. We have an orders table, which has about 5 million records. And then each order has a number of order lines. So there's about 120 million of them in total. So those are big numbers for Salesforce, but they're fairly small numbers for Snowflake. And one thing to notice as well for the orders table, we actually have an account number and a contact number in the column. And that's how we're going to be able to link to the accounts and the contacts that reside over in Salesforce. So We're going to use Omnata Connect combined with the Salesforce Connect feature, which creates external objects and then is going to automatically fetch this data from Snowflake in real time. So Omnata Connect is a Salesforce app when you use it with Salesforce. So you install a package from the Salesforce App Exchange, and that comes with a bunch of sort of backend code which enables the integration, but then it also has this setup UI. So the idea is that a regular Salesforce administrator, someone who knows their way around Salesforce but doesn't necessarily have deep expertise in integration, should be able to configure this. So I've already configured the connection to Snowflake. I've got my Snowflake connection. And then when I go to this tab here, select my connection, it's going to give me a list of all the tables and views that are available from Snowflake.
So this is querying Snowflake live as we.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. And direct as well. There's nothing in between. So the Salesforce organization that you own is talking directly to the Snowflake account that you own. So Omnata actually doesn't run any infrastructure for this product. So any table or view that has a unique identifier column can be added automatically. And so what it does, I'll demo creating one a little bit later. I just wanted to jump straight to some sort of end result. So I've already added the orders and the order lines. And so what it's done is it's created a object in Salesforce with fields that match the Snowflake columns. So they've picked an appropriate data type. Our product sort of automatically picks an appropriate data type and handles the conversion. And then the other thing I've done, I've sort of renamed all the uppercase columns into nicer looking field names. And then I've converted a few of the fields into lookups. So the order lines table, because it's sort of a child of each order line belongs to an order, I've created a lookup to say that the order ID column in order lines can link up to an order. And then also those account numbers and contact numbers that we saw over in Snowflake, those are actually going to link to a field for the Salesforce accounts and contacts. So we have this kind of hierarchy now, like a hierarchical data model that spans the on-platform Salesforce data and several nested hierarchies of data out in Snowflake.
Are you pulling that relationship from the data warehouse?
No, so you basically you create a lookup by telling Salesforce this data links to that.
Okay.
I guess it could be possible for the cloud data platforms that do support foreign key relationships. You could probably infer some of it. The stuff that sort of spans across the platforms, you won't necessarily be able to determine that. And you can also have multiple data platforms. So for example, if it may be unlikely, but if you're using both Snowflake and BigQuery, for example, you could have a BigQuery table that's happens to be a child of a Snowflake table, and that would work. You can sort of browse between them. So what we can do now that we've done this, so we can just look at the orders directly. So we've got a tab in Salesforce now. We can look at those. We can add different list views with different filters on it. And every time you like change a filter or a sort order, it's rewriting another query and running it against Snowflake and pulling it back.
Okay. So this data is not persisted within.
No, it's no.
Is you're just having a view on top that is live and refreshes as you go.
Yeah, that's right. And so we can drill into a particular order. This shows us like the whole record. So if you had a really wide Snowflake table with lots of columns, you could kind of fit all the fields here if you needed to do that. And you can see that the account and the contact that this order belongs to, instead of showing just account number, because we created that lookup, it's actually substituted it automatically for that actual account, which sits in Salesforce. So you can sort of browse between them. So we have the related order lines as well. And anytime we have a related list in Salesforce, it's automatically filtered. So this will be just the order lines for that particular order number 3 that we're looking at. And then we can also, if I go back up to the account level, it's going to open the account record. We can also drill down into orders using an account or a contact as a starting point. So if I was interested in this particular customer, I can go to orders. And to a Salesforce user, they can't really tell that this is coming from elsewhere. It looks and behaves just like a regular Salesforce object. These are all the orders for that particular account that we can drill into. So yeah, that's probably the differentiator between, some people might embed some kind of BI tool in like an iframe type of thing, whereas Omnada Connect is more like native to the platform. So you can use these objects in reports, in list views, process automation, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, this is a fascinating approach because in the past, folks would bring the data to the data warehouse, enrich that, and either go down the road of creating static BI reports, which could be printed out, given to the sales teams or to the marketing teams to go run our campaigns. Very ineffective. What you're doing here is replacing those static reports with operational data directly in the hands of the people running the business.
Yeah, so that's right. We position this very much as an operational tool, not a analytics tool. So yes, it involves big data. So yes, we're talking hundreds of millions of records, but we're not trying to calculate something across all of that data. What we're trying to do is hone in quickly to the relevant subset of that data and present it to the user. So Tableau is great for when you want to calculate all those sort of aggregate information and display it visually. We would position ourselves more against the traditional scenario where you need to see records from another system. In the old days, you would buy some big standalone middleware product like MuleSoft or Boomi, and you'd have an integration developer sort of wire up all the APIs so that Salesforce could invoke them. Whereas this product is basically saying, well, if everything's in Snowflake and that's really your only important data source, then we offer this sort of direct path that's much simpler.
Very fascinating. I was reading a statistic the other day where Salesforce is overtaken SAP to become the topmost enterprise used software. So Salesforce isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But the question I have for you is the Omnada Connect just on Salesforce, or do you support other CRMs or operational SaaS tools? Workday or Pipedrive, you name it, there are tons of them out there.
Yeah, we've found that Salesforce is the most popular and the most architecturally suited to it. We do have a Zendesk app on the Zendesk marketplace, which it's kind of similar to this, but it's more of a embedded visual layer. It's just the way that Snowflake works. Sorry, the way that Salesforce works. It has a lot of these core building blocks like virtual objects that can be linked. A similar concept exists in Dynamics CRM called virtual objects, I think. SAP has them. There's really only a handful of the big enterprise CRMs that have something that lets you build like a native virtual object like this. We can certainly build something like what we did for Zendesk, which is more of a framed view over the data, but it's not it's something that looks quite different in each CRM. So for now, we've chosen mainly to focus on Salesforce because it's such a big part of the market, and they have the majority of those enterprise customers. So yeah, it's kind of deliberately not a general purpose tool. Each time we build it, it's going to be native to that platform. So like this is written in Apex, for example, which only exists on Salesforce. So to build it elsewhere is kind of a whole new project.
Oh, okay. Are there any specific licensings on the Salesforce side users need to make this work, like Tableau CRM, something else? I'm not a Salesforce expert, but I'm sure you can educate
Yeah.
on that and the audience.
So what I've demoed today requires Salesforce Connect, which is an add-on feature that you have to buy. For people who don't want to purchase that license, we do offer a Lightning component, which is basically just gives you the list views and it looks and feels like a regular list view, but it's not actually creating proper external objects. So we sort of have that as a simplified option if you want to keep the cost down. And then Salesforce Connect with the proper external objects mode is more for companies that just want their data from other parts of the business just represented as first class objects in Salesforce.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Is this connector, Omnada Connect, just a read-only connector then, or can you persist incoming data set from Salesforce into the data warehouse leveraging this connector?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We do get asked that from time to time. The answer is yes, you can. You can write to Snowflake. So our adapter does support that. Personally, I think there's limited scenarios where that's a good idea. I think if you have large enough amounts of, so if you've got on platform Salesforce data like leads and opportunities and all those things, you're better off using an ELT tool to replicate that into Snowflake if you want to do that. You can create an external object and enable write back, and that will let you add records. So, like, I could add orders to the orders table from Salesforce. I don't know because presumably that data is usually authored in some other system. I'm not sure it's a great idea to be adding from multiple places. I'm a kind of a believer in the single writer principle. So the short answer is yes, you can.
I get it.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
whole point of the data warehouse really being that single source of truth. And I think you're really sticking to that philosophy where bring that data into the data warehouse, enrich it, join it with other data sources. And now once you have that operational view of the data, make it accessible to the folks that are running the business, as opposed to trying to
yeah.
put logic in different systems that could get out of control pretty quickly.
That's right. Yeah, I don't think you should be building applications that are that sophisticated in Salesforce. I think
Mm.
it's more of a if you treat it just like a CRM, which I like to do, it's managing the accounts and the contacts and all those things, all the sales flow, but everything else is kind of useful reference data as opposed to actually things might change when Snowflake launch Unistore and they have this proper transactional tables. I think you could actually use Snowflake. You could use our products with a hybrid table in Snowflake to build like a larger scale Salesforce app.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I wouldn't be adding rows that originally came from elsewhere.
Okay. You want to rely on the ETL or ELT tool that's feeding the data warehouse to take care of that.
Yeah, I think in terms of right tool for the job, I think that would be wise.
Okay. Very fascinating. Let's go down a little bit and unpack a couple of things on the technical side. Salesforce and sales data could be a little bit sensitive, where a sales manager in one region shouldn't see leads for a sales manager in another region. And
Mm.
Snowflake has very capable governance primitives to secure, to filter that data, to show that to the right person. How would that be implemented in this perspective with this connector?
Yeah, there's two ways that our customers do it. The first is at if you want to separate it at the whole table level, um, typically the customer's going to use a single service account to connect to Snowflake, and then you have an object in Salesforce. But that object is securable by the usual Salesforce permission model. So if I have a whole table that only certain people in Salesforce should see, then you would use the normal Salesforce permission model to say, these people can see it, these other people can't, and Salesforce would make sure that was the case. If you've got the trickier situation where you have a Snowflake table and certain people are allowed to see certain rows but not others, one way we can support that is through row level filtering, which is essentially, you can think of this as like a mandatory hidden where clause that gets applied.
Mhm.
So if your user has a particular attribute on their profile, so for example, um, if I had a certain level of privilege in Salesforce, I can create this sort of automated filter so that when we're building the query to execute against Snowflake, it's going to pull that from the context of the current user and sort of add it in. And then what you'll get is this sort of automatically filtered subset of what's in Snowflake.
Mhm.
So that's if you've got that sort of it's almost like a multi-tenant table sort of idea.
Oh, okay. Very fascinating. And then from a pricing perspective, so for users that are excited by this, with the connector and just giving my limited knowledge of Salesforce, how does that work? Is it tied to the consumption model of Snowflake, or is it per seat, per object? How do you approach that?
So we have a listing on the Salesforce App Exchange. So if you go and you search Omnada on the Salesforce App Exchange, you'll find our listing, and then you can install a trial from there into your account, which lasts for 30 days by default. The list price we go by, it's per user that's using the external objects. So say you have 100 people in your Salesforce org and 50 of them need to see this data, you would buy 50 user licenses. The list price is $20 per user per month. Obviously, for larger orgs, we do other sorts of volume discounts, and even sort of tends to be when you get to hundreds of users, we sort of just offer it as a site-wide license for a fixed cost, because you don't want to keep paying the per head price at a high scale.
Okay. I'm going to leave links to all of this in the description below for those that want to reach out to James and his team to learn more and to go a little bit deeper than what we've gone here. So those links will all be in the description below. James, thank you very much. This has been very illuminating to see companies are always struggling to squeeze value out of their data. One of my colleagues has described this in the past as the Hotel California. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a song,
Yeah, yeah.
things come in, but they cannot leave. And companies have built these data bunkers and silos. What Snowflake has really done is open that up with a very scalable approach, having tools like this that can make it more operational so that the data warehouse is not just a cost center, but it's actually driving the business. So the marketing person can look at this and influence the campaigns they send out. The sales people are looking at this and activating how they reach out to their clients. So a very fascinating space.
Yeah, I agree. I like to think of that as what you've invested already into something like Snowflake can save you costs elsewhere, like integration costs that you might have spent in some other cost center. So it's like reusing that investment, really.
All right. As a founder and CEO, what's the vision next? What's coming next for the audience, and where are you taking this?
Yeah, so we're actively, selling this product. We're also looking at Snowflake native apps as a way to complement this with other workloads. Our overall vision is that data integration in the cloud should be different to the way it was done pre-cloud. So we are always looking at opportunities where you can build native direct integrations between systems as opposed to being another standalone platform. So that's really the boundary of what we do is how can we take an old workload from pre-cloud and make something much better and streamlined because of the direct nature of the cloud. So we got some stuff coming up next year around Snowflake, which is pretty exciting. Still in development, but I'll be keen to tell you all about it when that launches.
I cannot wait. James, thank you so much for coming on board the Demo Hub. This has been very fascinating. I've learned a lot, and I hope the audience too have learned a lot. James is a frequent guest here. So as you build this vision, and I'll be very glad to have you come back and share that progress and some more demos. Any last words for the audience, where they can find you, any links and resources?
Yeah, we'll drop a link to the App Exchange listing as well as our own website. That should cover things. You can also feel free to look me up on LinkedIn if you want to ask any questions.
That's awesome. Well, James, thanks for coming on board, and we'll see you in our next demo.